India, also known as the land of Bharatvarsha, is especially blessed because it is in that land that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared in various incarnations. And when we travel around in India, we find so many places. Wherever you go, there's always some place related to some pastime of the Lord nearby. I was in Maharashtra somewhere, some small town, and then it turned out that not far from there was the place where there was a Jatayu temple. It was the place where Jatayu, after fighting with Ravana, and Ravana had cut its wings, then Jatayu fell. And the place where he fell to earth, there a samadhi was erected. So that is still there. So we went there, and then they said, oh, and nearby is the place where Lord Kapila Dev spoke to his mother, Devahuti. His ashram is there, still there. We went there. And like this, India is just a land full of transcendental tirthas, full of places where the Lord has performed his transcendental activities. In this way, the land of Bharat particularly is meant for spiritual life. It is not a land for material life. Material life has always been a struggle in India. As soon as the people were turning to the Supreme Lord, material life was very auspicious. As people turned a little away from the Supreme Lord, so much struggle, so many difficulties are there. Because Bharatvarsha is protected. It is particularly a land meant for special souls, souls that are inclined towards the service of the Supreme Lord. So Vidura went on that pilgrimage, and he came across so many places of pilgrimage. But then, in the course of his travels, he came to Prabhas Kshetra. So Prabhas Kshetra is where Krishna and Balaram went before. It is the area on the shore, and then in the ocean they made the city of Dwarka. So the shore near Dwarka is known as Prabhas Kshetra. So that was particularly a place related to Krishna, directly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan. So that place is particularly potent, and therefore particularly important. It was Vidura at great fortune of being there. Of course, it wasn't when Vidura came there. That was already after the fratricide, or the situation had come about where the Yadus had fought with each other. There was a situation where Samba was, as a boy, I think it was it Samba? I think so. As a boy, had dressed up and had put something under the dress to look like a pregnant woman, dressed up like a lady. Went to the sages and asked the sages, what will be this child, a boy or a girl? Right. But the sages, they said that this pregnancy, you fools, will become the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. So that is there was a curse, and you will give birth to a lump of iron. So he gave birth to this lump of iron. And they decided what to do with this lump of iron. So finally, they decided to grind it to a powder and throw it in the water. But then, as it was as a powder into the water, it went into the reeds. And once, when the Yadus were drinking, then while they were intoxicated, they had a mock fight with reeds. But the metal had gone into these reeds, so the reeds became real weapons, and the Yadus became killed. All this was the arrangement of the Supreme Lord to wind up his pastimes. This is part of the Mosalya Lila of the Supreme Lord. Devotees are not very fond of the Mosalya Lila, of the departure pastime of Krishna, because after all, it is difficult to bear the separation of Krishna. So, therefore, the devotees are eager to see that Lord Krishna, somehow or other, that his interest is protected. The Yadus, we may recall, since we've just celebrated Jamastami, that the demigods went to the ocean, the shore of the ocean of milk, and prayed to the Lord. Bhumi was aggrieved. Lord Brahma heard the answer of the Lord, that soon the Lord would appear on earth and that the demigods should appear in the family of the Yadus. So these were demigods, these were powerful personalities. It said that the Yadus were unrivaled. No one could match the Yadus. Now, the Yadus, it is said, not all the Yadus were fully aware of who Krishna was. They knew he was divine, and some thought he was the super soul. But they did not understand necessarily his full identity as Swayam Bhagavan. That was not necessarily so. So the Yadus, there was a concern that the Yadus, after the departure of Krishna, might themselves become a burden to the earth, due to their strength, due to their pride, that they might become a problem. Because pride is such that it can even bewilder one who is otherwise a devotee. Pride can even bring a Vaishnava to the point of becoming bewildered and becoming a sense of too much self-importance, and therefore beginning to assert oneself more than one should, and beginning to demand, this is mine, this should be like this, that should be, this is my opinion, this is how I see it, this is how it has to be. So this tendency to control, to enforce is very strong. Everyone has opinions, all of us. We're all sitting, when we're listening to a Bhagavatam class, we're not only listening to the Bhagavatam class, we have an opinion about it as well. Well, I didn't think it was so good, or I thought it was great, I thought it was this, I thought it was that. It was a little bit, it was nice in this way, but the delivery was good, but the substance was a little poor. Like this, we can analyze, we can dice, we can slice, and we have opinions, always, about everything. My opinion. This is the problem. It is this, being opinionated can be a great problem. One has to be very careful to become transparent. We can glorify Srila Prabhupada for so many qualities, but one of the maybe core qualities of Srila Prabhupada is his transparency, that he is completely transparent to his spiritual master. I remember that in the 80s, someone was giving a seminar unzipping the purports of the Bhagavatam. And basically what they did is they had put the commentaries next to the Bhagavatam, and they were saying, this is actually not from Prabhupada, this is from the commentary, and this is not Prabhupada, this is from that commentary, and in this way analyze the purports. Is it like, actually these are not Prabhupada's purports, these are simply full of statements from the commentaries of the previous acharyas. So in this way, some people thought that this was minimizing Prabhupada, but others thought that this was maximizing Prabhupada, that this was showing even more than anything that Prabhupada was transparent, that he was simply faithfully representing the Sampradaya. So this is the art. The Yadus, in Krishna's presence, they were centered, focused on Krishna. Although not all of them had an equal understanding in depth who Krishna was, but still they were all focused on Krishna. So they would not act against Krishna's will. Right? But now that Krishna was about to leave this world, to leave the Yadus alone without a head, and then everyone would start acting independent. That is the situation. Drawing that parallel, we may also consider that as long as the disciple is in the presence of the spiritual master, or as long as the spiritual master is present on the planet, we are accountable. We are accountable. But once the spiritual master has left the planet, then who are we accountable to? At that time, there is a great burden. There's a great burden on the disciple, a great responsibility to somehow or other align voluntarily as much as possible with the spiritual master. It will be more easy to go astray than in the presence of the spiritual master. So it takes maturity. And of course, when Srila Prabhupada initiated so many disciples, Srila Prabhupada was in his 70s, right? And left this planet when he was 81, and his disciples were 50 years younger. So it's so obviously it is the law of disciplic succession that the disciple may have to face that situation of continuing in the separation of the spiritual master. So at that time, one has to still stay very close to the desire of the spiritual master, to the instructions of the spiritual master. I say both, desire and instructions, because a desire may not always be articulated. Like an instruction is, I want you to do this and this and this, very specific. But a desire, more a mood. Like Srila Prabhupada may not have given everyone the instruction, Yara deke tara kaha Krishna Upadesh, Amara Agyaya Gurahaya Tare Desh. This verse, that whomever you meet, instruct them about Krishna Upadesh. That means the life and teachings of Krishna. And in this way, deliver the entire country, the entire world. So whether Prabhupada said it personally or not to anyone, that's his mood. That's what he dedicated his whole life to. That's what he did every moment. So obviously, if one is a follower of Srila Prabhupada, that's what's there to do. Right? That's where one will meet Srila Prabhupada. Right? As soon as we take that mission of everyone, leaving no stone unturned, leaving no opportunity, everyone, and trying to give them Krishna some way or other, yes, then we connect with Prabhupada. And otherwise, we may feel distant. And otherwise, we may be distant. Because that was what was dear to him. So, in this way, we are trying to absorb the mood of the spiritual master. I think that mood of Srila Prabhupada is predominant, and all others, since Prabhupada is the one at whose feet all masters sit, all others are also taking that same mission. How could they have any other mission? There's no way. One cannot be in the disciplic succession of Srila Prabhupada and not have a desire and not feel the order on one's head to spread Krishna consciousness to anyone and everyone without discrimination. Srila Prabhupada is the Jagat Guru, the Acharya of the world, but he's also very much the person who cared for any individual, who was like ready to deal with any individual and to give mercy to any individual. I mean, he would speak to journalists after the on TV after the interview was over. Right? He would not stop. He would continue. In Scotland, in Glasgow, there was a program in a theatre. And the whole theatre was filled with people, and there were devotees were guarding the door and so on. But towards the end of the program, the devotees, they went onto the stage as well to dance with Prabhupada. Then these street kids, right, grubby little street kids, they also came in, and they started to climb on the stage. Then the devotees started to push them off the stage. Right? I mean, how can you be on the stage? They pushed them off the stage. And Prabhupada said, no, let them come. Yes, very nice. Yes, let them come, let them dance. Yes, because Prabhupada saw, right? He saw their bhakti, he saw that now they're dancing. Yes, this is... Yes, they may be in the mode of ignorance, yes, but now they are taking huge steps forward in their spiritual life, very quickly now. So this attitude of giving Krishna consciousness, putting it into this world, that is what we have inherited. And no matter how, no matter what, somehow or other, we are part of that. We are part of that. Now, some people, they may preach Krishna consciousness by standing on the street and distributing books, or doing Harinam, or going door to door, or doing university programs, or preaching on the internet, or some may do prasadam distribution. All these things are going on. There is still one other way, And the other way is to live a model life. We need examples. One of the big issues is that we are not just a propaganda movement. It's nice to have propaganda everywhere, but we need people who live it, really live it. And so there also is a challenge to be a perfect model, to really do it, to really live a Krishna conscious life, not watered down, not compromised, not like I'm trying. I always say, if someone says I'm trying means you're not doing. See? That's what I'm trying translates to, that you're not actually doing it. That's, if you think about it, I'm trying. So you're not doing it. Right? Say, no, I'm doing it. That's what it should be. We should do it. I'm following it, yes. So that's what we need. And that will also be powerful preaching. If we have families where all the energy goes into bringing up a whole bunch of kids, right? And they go like, where's any time for preaching? But if there is a real attempt to establish Krishna consciousness in that household and live by these principles, then it also becomes a source of strength. So there are different ways that we can live this instruction, Yare Deke Tarakaha Krishna Upadesh, different ways. Not only by standing on the street corner, not only, of course, book distribution remains the new life of this movement. It will always renew. It will always renew this movement. Now, always is a big word, right? Because now we're having a world where devotees are in the minority. Right? Now we're having a world where the population at large is in total illusion, has no idea what's going on, and somehow or other we have to pierce that bubble of illusion. Book, bubble popped, right? Entering into these situations, yes. But imagine that at one point the Krishna consciousness movement will actually become predominant. When high court judges will wear tilak, when governments will be ruled by devotee kings, when everywhere there's Krishna prasadam. Yesterday we did Harinam near the marketplace, and there was a marketplace. I didn't pay much attention to it, but I did see something like, I saw the veggie, I saw bio, and then later the devotees came and explained to me that actually it was a vegan market. Right? The whole thing was vegan. I go, wow, impressive. Jeez. A whole vegan market in the town. Imagine, it's only one step further. Everything prasadam. Prasadam was already there. The devotees were there with prasadam, of course. But imagine, everything prasadam. Imagine that everywhere, everything you could eat, you could buy, would be prasadam. Imagine. Wow. You just go and have some ice cream, prasadam, have some, any restaurant would be a devotee-run restaurant, right? So like that, when mainstream society actually becomes Krishna conscious, and that becomes the norm, then do we still need commando book distributors, like coming out, like, excuse me, are you from here out of town? What you got there? The Bhagavad Gita, yeah. I have a box at home as well. Right? I mean, at one point, right, it's not only about distributing the Bhagavad Gita, it becomes about teaching the Bhagavad Gita. If we read in the Krishna book, we read about the city of Kazi, as a description of the city of Kazi, and it said in the city of Kazi, which was a big Vedic city, there were 30,000 lecture platforms. 30,000. Now think about that. If we would, here we have one seat as big as a battleship, and for one lecture on Bhagavatam. But imagine we'd have 30,000 lectures on Bhagavatam in Zagreb. 30,000 places where Bhagavatam would be discussed in Zagreb. That would be something, wouldn't it? But that's sort of what is painted, in the Bhagavatam about the city of Kasi, that it was such a place, 30,000 lecture platforms. So everywhere people would assemble, at least in the evening to hear Shastra, and different speakers would speak. So a time will come when merely giving someone a book will not be enough, and it's time to teach the books. And anyway, what do you do when someone got a book and they look in the back and they find some address in there and they rock up at the temple? Then what do you do? Here's another book. No, then the time comes to actually teach what's in the book, right? Then we have to also read them first, right? So yes, Sanatana Goswami is an example of a fully realized preacher. It is said Sanatana Goswami would travel around Vrindavan Dham, and wherever he was just glorifying Krishna. And that's what he did as a way of life, glorifying Krishna. And that at the same time was also preaching, because he was always talking about Krishna, glorifying Krishna, and whoever heard it was fortunate. So this is, we see the same in Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he was just always talking about Krishna, always. And in this way, automatically, always preaching. Just no need, like to put on his preaching hat. Okay, I'm sitting here being normal. Maybe I'm wearing my let's drink something hat. Now, take it off, put on the preaching hat. Okay, you are not this body, you are an eternal spirit soul, do you realize, and in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Matras parstas tu kuntiya sitasnas tu kadugana agama payina nityas tam tiksvat bharataha, that you should be tolerant. And winter and summer seasons, right, should not affect you. Hot or cold, all these things are the dualities. Do not let yourself be swept away by the dualities. Phew, that was tiring. Take off my preaching hat, put your feet on the table head. That was hard work, right? But Prabhupada didn't change hats, right? He didn't change hats. Prabhupada was simply always glorifying Krishna. The same at home, the same in a program. Prabhupada on TV, millions of people are watching, millions. Imagine, you're on TV, millions of people are watching, millions. You might just go like, hi, Mom. You're on TV, do you realize that you are on television? Millions of people are watching. Oh my God, I'm on television. Prabhupada was not concerned. Right? Prabhupada didn't care where he was. He was with Krishna, and he was glorifying Krishna. That's what it was. And it didn't matter where he was, who he was with. That was what he was doing. And he was acting according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was very much the representative of Srimad Bhagavatam. He didn't just carry the Bhagavatam from India to the West, but he lived it. He lived it completely. It's very interesting how Prabhupada some arrangement was made for Prabhupada to be formally received by the city of Paris. And that what was being arranged, that in some formal reception, they would present Prabhupada with the key of the city. And so all this was going on. Beforehand, a whole protocol was given. The mayor would come at one point into this hall, and everyone would be seated. Then when the mayor would come, everyone would stand up, right? And then they would receive the honor, the welcome, and this and that. And so when it came to pass, Prabhupada didn't stand up. He didn't. Because Prabhupada was acting as a spiritual master. Right? He was representing Krishna. The mayor was representing the government. People have to stand up for the government. But Prabhupada was representing Krishna. So he didn't have to stand up. So he didn't stand up. He just kept on sitting. And they felt embarrassed, everyone was sort of like, tell your Swami, you should stand up. Swami was stand up. Mm-hmm. Kept on sitting. So transcendental, just completely transcendental. None than telling this story, one more story comes to mind. I may as well go there as well. We're moving to Japan. And in Japan, there was a wealthy man that had been cultivated. It was not in Tokyo, it was in the city of Kobe. And there in Kobe, this man, he was enthusiastic to support the devotees, and he was willing to receive Prabhupada for a program. And he was talking about giving a house for a temple. So the devotees were like, this is a hot contact, mister, we're going to have a special program, Prabhupada will meet him, and then we'll get the house. But then what happened was this, is that there was also some other Swami from India coming to preach, right? Then they were looking at the arrangements, and on the stage then, there was, before the program, there was a huge Vyasasan which had a picture of the man's guru. Then there was another Vyasasan for the speakers. And the devotees said, Prabhupada cannot sit on the small Vyasasan because Prabhupada is a Jagat Guru, he must sit on the big one. So, no, you cannot sit on the small one. So then, after a lot of up and down, the man agreed. Okay, he can sit on that Vyasasan. He said, but then, both the speakers should sit on the Vyasasan. So, okay, that was agreed. The devotees agreed to that and everything going on. Then there was the program. And yes, Prabhupada was invited to come and he sat on the Vyasasan. And then the program, Prabhupada spoke and everything. And then it was the turn for the other Swami from India, the Mayavadi, to also speak. And the host came and he invited Prabhupada to come down, and Prabhupada didn't come down. He stayed on the Vyasasan. He stayed. And that other Swami just stood there, sort of what to do. So at one point the other Swami sat on the small Vyasasan. So Prabhupada sitting there, and was on the small Vyasasan. Then, in the middle of the lecture of that Swami, after about 10 minutes, Prabhupada says, Kirtan, Kirtan! And the devotees immediately begin, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's the only melody they ever did. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. And they drowned out Oh, better. Thank you. Better late than never. Appreciate it. It's the bhakti. Anyway, the devotees, they drowned out this speaker. They drowned out the speaker. And then, afterwards, the organizer of the program, he was so upset. He said, what your Swami did, he said, this is too much, what your Swami did. And Prabhupada simply said, well, at first when he spoke, the first 10 minutes, it was okay. It was okay. He said, but then he started to speak, about the impersonal, truth and so on. So, that was intolerable. That's when the kirtan started. So Prabhupada showed that he was just completely focused on Krishna, and he didn't care to flatter anyone, didn't care about anything else. And that was his wonderful transcendental position. Yes, so in this way, we also try to situate ourselves. And then we can remain a faithful representative of our spiritual master and our sampradaya. And that is ultimately the way that Krishna consciousness will spread. Okay, I'll stop now. Any questions or comments?
Maharaj, how does one constantly glorify Krishna? Like, in the contemporary world right now, how do we constantly glorify Krishna? Because we're not on the level of Prabhupada, so how does someone who's not on the level of Prabhupada constantly glorify Krishna?
Someone who's not on the level of Prabhupada cannot constantly glorify Krishna. Only one on the level of Prabhupada can constantly glorify Krishna. So we should come to the level so that we can constantly glorify Krishna. And until then, we will not be able to. But then we will be like crows, tatvayasam tirtha usantyamana. So we will be places of pilgrimage for crows, where mundane discussions are going on, not helpful. So one way to constantly glorify Krishna is by hearing from Bhagavatam. And if we study the Bhagavatam a lot, then, and we absorb the Bhagavatam, then gradually we will start to think Bhagavatam, speak Bhagavatam, like that. Then Bhagavatam becomes part of us. So that is our approach, our sadhana, to come to this state of always being able to speak about Krishna. Read the Bhagavatam thoroughly, hear the Bhagavatam thoroughly, always. Memorize verses from the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam, 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 Bhagavatam. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.